After spending 1 year living in the ark, Noah walks off his boat and discovers the entire world has been flooded. There's no human or animal life in this universe besides for whatever was on the ark. In Genesis chapter 9, verse 1, we read how God blessed Noach and his sons to be fruitful and multiply and to fill the earth. Again, 6 verses later, God tells him, "And as for you, be fruitful and multiply, swarm upon the earth and multiply thereon." And the obvious question asked is why the need for God to mention procreation 2 times? Once wasn't enough? The simplest way to understand this is that the first time God was giving them a blessing for children. The second time he was giving them a commandment to have children. One would think that after a blessing from God and an additional separate commandment to have children to once again fill the earth with human civilization, Noach would have gone straight to work. But in reality, we find that Noach still refused. He would not engage in procreation until God guaranteed him that he would not destroy the world a second time, even in the face of mass immorality among his future descendants. God said okay, and gives him the guarantee plus the rainbow as a sign of this promise. It's only then that Noach's family bring more children into the world. When I reflect upon this section of the Torah, I find it most interesting that Noach did not hesitate to grow his family out of fear of them turning astray and living sinful lives. The hesitation he had was only due to the potential punishment for such behavior. In other words, it seems like Noach resigned to the fact that the future may resemble the past, but that wasn't enough to stop him. Many people would say, forget the punishment. If you don't think you can raise good kids, don't have them. Why go through the whole burden of pregnancy and child rearing to just be spit in the face? You're better off without it. But in truth, it's a very silly argument to make, for there is always the possibility that one's child will turn away from the education they receive of being a moral and ethical person to a life of cheating, corruption, and crime. No parent ever knows how their child will turn out in the future. Every parent hopes, prays, and works hard so that their child loves good and does good. But at the end of the day, we cannot play God and pretend to know the future. We must do our part and pray for the rest. There is a very interesting law regarding inheritance. Concerning a father who's upset that his child or children are not conducting themselves properly, and therefore he decides to give his inheritance as a gift to someone else rather than his children. It's in the Mishnah in Bava Basra and the Talmud, page 133b, and codified in Maimonides' Laws of Inheritance, chapter 6, paragraph 11. Our sages did not derive satisfaction from a person who gives his property to others, taking it away from his heirs. This applies even when the heirs do not conduct themselves properly. Furthermore, it's an attribute of piety for a person not to act as a witness with regard to such a will. Now, the logic behind this law is our disapproval of someone playing the role of God and pretending to know what the future will bring. For although now his descendants are misbehaving, it's very likely that they will do tshuva and return to a God-fearing, love-filled life. Our vision is limited. We only see the here and the now, but there's going to be a future, and we must do all in our power that the future look bright. It's not how one starts it, it's how you end it. In our history, we've had many, many great people who only began studying later on in their life. In some cases, they were in the mafia and up to crime for decades until they realized their error and returned home. The greatest demonstration of belief in God is to have a child. We are all walking demonstrations of people who, despite the ever-growing pain, suffering, and nonsense in this world, still put their best foot forward and follow God's great blessing and mitzvah to be fruitful and multiply. We are not to make calculations regarding the subject, be they financial calculations, social norms, or the like. For calculations and such reasoning must be based in logic. But absent faith in God, absent the mitzvah to procreate, most likely me and you would not be here today. Noach understood this well. As soon as he was promised civilization would never be completely annihilated, he was off to the races. Not knowing what the future would bring is not a reason not to have another child. May we all be blessed to be fruitful and multiply, all in good health materially and spiritually. I wish you a good Shabbos.